What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Quarantine Kitchen Quick Fix. Today, we're going to be making one of my favorite desserts, banana oatmeal raisin. You could make it bread. We're going to make muffins today. You can also make them cookies, depending on how thick your batter is. Why is it clean instead of normal? This recipe does not call for additional sugar, and all the sugars come from a natural sweetener, and there's no oil in this recipe. So, because of that, that classifies it as clean, I guess. I'm not 100% certain on what that definition is. I like it because it uses things that I currently have, and I don't have to put a lot of sugar or oil in it. So, that's my definition. Okay, let's go ahead and get started with today's ingredients. We are going to be using the blender here in a minute because I'm lazy. 2 bananas. Mine were frozen. That's why they look like that. So they're like soggy. 1 egg. If you're going vegan with this, you can absolutely use a flax egg, applesauce, or an additional banana if you wanted to in this recipe. A little bit of salt, cinnamon. Oop, I should show you and not my chair. Baking powder, vanilla extract, honey. If you're vegan, you can absolutely use maple syrup instead of using the honey. Actually, what this is neither. This is a glucose syrup thing. It's like, I don't even know what this is. It's basically like a sugar syrup instead of honey because they were out of honey and I didn't like the flavor of the mulatto pecana that I bought. We're going to be using oats, gluten-free of course, and we're going to be using up my homemade rice milk. Well, we're going to use a cup of it, not necessarily using it up. So, easy. And the first thing we're going to do is combine the eggs, milk, and bananas into a blender. Now, if you wanted to just mash it with a fork, you totally could. If you have a masher, you can do that. I have a fork, but bananas in Brazil tend to be like sturdy. They're defiant. They're like, we're not doing that. You can't make us. So I'm going to put them in the blender. And it also adds a little air to the batter. Makes it fluffier. Oh, this is messy. Ooh, that's fun. I know, I rinsed my hand off to literally do the same thing to the next banana. I didn't want to freeze my bananas. I actually prefer using non-frozen bananas, but some of my bananas split open on the way here, and the only way to really save that is either eat them right away or freeze them. So froze them because mostly I wanted them for this recipe. Okay. Now we have the egg. I didn't pull out any of my measuring cups. I was not prepared for this video. Because I was like, ooh, banana raisin cookies. Oh, we also need raisins. Those are still sitting in my cupboard. Can't have oatmeal raisin cookies without raisins. That would be kind of a key ingredient. I also didn't pull out my measuring cup, and I have no idea where that's located at the moment. There it is. And I'll pull out my raisins. Just while we're sitting here. Another wonderful addition to this, instead of raisins, you could use chocolate chips. You could also use dates. I tried that, and that was really good. It tasted like a Fig Newton. I like Fig Newtons. You could also use dried fruit, or you could add peanut butter. That's another good combination. So what I'm giving you right now is the base. The raisins that we add in will be any topping that you choose. I'm using raisins. If you wanted to, you could use something else. We're going to be using a cup of my rice milk. I'm glad that I made it in such a small portion because I have actually used it quite a bit this week. But yeah. Okay, so we're going to pop this on the blender for 30 seconds maybe, just enough to get a liquidy batter, and then we're going to put it into a bowl. So pop it on the blender until it's nice and smooth, and then Okay, so before we do this, go ahead and preheat your oven to 350 degrees, and we're going to put everything into the bowl. I'm going to move my banana, egg, milk mixture out of the way. It is 1 cup of oats, Make sure you are using gluten-free if you are a celiac or gluten intolerant. Otherwise, it doesn't ultimately matter. It doesn't affect the batter in any way, whether they're gluten-free or not. That's merely for those with allergies or intolerances, whatever you want to call it. Okay, and then it is a teaspoon of honey. It's not very much. It's like literally just a touch of flavor. Most of the flavor is going to come from the bananas. That's where most of the sweetness is coming from. And then you also have the vanilla that we're going to add. Okay, now we're going to use I'm going to use a teaspoon of vanilla because I like the flavor. The original recipe calls for a half teaspoon. I don't like to be told what to do. Now, you can also add more oats or liquid as needed depending on what you're trying to make. As we are going for muffins today, I want the batter to be kind of thin. If you're going for cookies, you're going to want it to be a little thinner. It ultimately doesn't matter, and the reason I say that is because if you're using non-dairy milk, it's made of water and an ingredient. Water evaporates, so you have to bake it a little longer, but that's ultimately the worst thing that's going to happen. Half teaspoon of baking powder, cinnamon, in no particular amount. It calls for a teaspoon. I like cinnamon because I think cinnamon adds a lot of flavor. And I'm trying to use up this container. So all my recipes that ask for cinnamon, I'm like doubling the recipe. I actually think I did. I did! Can't reuse that because you can't get the top off. Irritating. Okay, a pinch of salt, and then I'm going to fold the raisins in at the very end. So now we're going to mix in the liquidy batter. I'm probably going to add some more oats to this. I end up doing that pretty much every time, which is fine. I'm going to add in some more oats, see if I can't use up that bag. But, for example, if you're making muffins, this is like the perfect texture because the oats will absorb the moisture as it cooks, water will evaporate, and you'll end up with a nice baked good. The texture changes a little depending on how thin the batter is, but it doesn't affect the ultimate quality. Especially when gluten-free cooking, like we all look at like dense rocks anyway, so. I did add more oats. That's about a half cup of oats. I was almost out, and it's a little thinner than I would like, which is fine. Okay, we're going to mix it. I'm going to hope to get about a dozen small muffins, but I'm also only going to fill the cups half full, so I may actually get more than that out of this batter. Okay. I'm not using all the raisins. I'm going to use a couple of handfuls. For real, the definite measurement of this is until it looks like enough. And I use this as like a high iron dessert. I'm trying to up my protein in both the morning and the evening. Lunch is kind of a whatever. It's usually leftovers, or like today I'm making a fruit salad. I guess maybe I will use it. I wasn't going to use the whole container, but these are cheap, so guess we're using them. If you don't like, this is, again, so if you don't like raisins, this would be a great time to, instead of raisins, use chocolate chips. Instead of raisins, use peanut butter. A half cup of peanut butter would be fine. Trying to think of what other, I pretty much only eat 3 types of cookies, so. I mean, if you put, like, a snickerdoodle in front of me, actually, I love snickerdoodles. I would not use this particular recipe for snickerdoodles, but you could, if you felt so inclined. Okay, now we're going to pull out our muffin tray. I love silicone cookware. It is the best way, in my opinion, to cook without oil. Just because you don't have to grease the pan ahead of time, it pops right out. I'm sure that someone's going to yell at me and be like, those are dangerous for your health. Probably. But no more so than cooking in metal, I imagine. I don't actually know. I've never done the research on that. So if you have an opinion, feel free to share it. I'll listen. Different opinions are what make the world go round. So I'm going to get a lot more than 12 muffins out of this. Yay! Because you can always freeze them, and then you'll just have muffins. I only have one muffin tray, so I'm going to put the batter in the refrigerator while these are baking, and then I'm going to reuse everything. So we're going to pop that into the oven until they're done. This is probably going to take about 20 to 25 minutes or so in the oven at 350. I'm going to set mine to 230 because that's where I bake everything. Maybe not because they're not filled all the way. But anyway, about 20 minutes until they're done. Stick a toothpick in them when it comes out clean. And you can kind of gauge by looking at them. If it's still wiggly, obviously it's not finished. So we're going to put these in the oven, and then when they're done, I'll be back. And here we are with my platter full of oatmeal raisin muffins. I did come out with 18. They would have been evenly portioned if I had done a little better. So I do have 18, which means that they come out to just about 96 calories each, which is fantastic for a low-calorie, high-iron dessert. So, or breakfast or whatever. So anyway, woo, thumbnail. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope you get to enjoy this recipe. If you find any tweaks, try it with chocolate chips or whatever. Let me know down in the comments so I know what works and what doesn't. All right, guys, thank you for joining me, and happy cooking.